to Green Rush Live for a Friday afternoon. I'm Jimmy Young with Pro Cannabis Media, joined every week by
David Rabinovitz.
That's you. And we are waiting Frank Segall from Burns and Levinson, who we expect to join us at any moment. So David and I will continue to pontificate. They are running, Burns and Levinson is running their 5th annual State of the Cannabis Industry conference on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, in the Massachusetts area. It's in Waltham, which is a suburb of Boston. And it's a 9 to 5 event at the Waltham Westin, if I remember correctly. Right, David?
Yep.
And he's got quite a set of luminaries and officials ready to go there. They'll be interviewing Stephen Hoffman, the commissioner of the Massachusetts Cannabis Commission. And David, if you had an opportunity to interview Stephen Hoffman, and I do believe we have him scheduled in about a month or so, what are some of the things you'd want to talk to him about? What are some of the things you would ask Stephen Hoffman about as you look at the Massachusetts cannabis scene right now? And I have a few, but I'm interested to hear what you might be interested in, especially for someone now who's actively pursuing a license.
Yes. Well, so the things I would be interested to talk to the commissioner about, the subjects, and these haven't changed much, is really, I am very interested in how the commission is going to manage canopy in the state. I have been many times shunned by my views, though I've got a real recharge as of late because of the Robert Mikos paper, right? And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, there is a Vanderbilt law professor who published a 40-page document back in July. It was published by the Boston University Law Library. If you would, or rather the Boston University Law Review, you can find it on the internet by Googling Robert Mikos Cannabis Interstate Transport. And the gist of it is, Professor Mikos contends that under the Dormant Commerce Clause of the United States Constitution, the states cannot ban interstate commerce of cannabis. And it wouldn't take too much to tip over most of the state regulations that are prohibiting interstate commerce. As soon as interstate commerce happens, it's going to change the industry within a year. A lot of people are going to go out of business. I don't know that I would want to be a holder of certain real estate investments, because marijuana at the end of the day is an agricultural product. And it is a relatively large plant when you compare it to herbs. It doesn't grow well economically in warehouses. It just doesn't make sense. And when you compare the cost of growing it in a warehouse with all the lighting, electricity, and HVAC required to the cost of growing it outdoors, once you can transport it across state lines, I've said this before, JetBlue is going to be the big winner, because all the people on the East Coast are going to be flying to the West Coast to find weed that's grown outdoors by licensed growers so they can bring it back. What's the Cannabis Control Commission in Massachusetts going to do? How are they going to modify the regs? How are they going to accommodate that? Are they going to be like the FDA and put their head in the sand and say, well, we'll wait for it to happen? Or are they going to be like the DOJ and say, gee, this is on the radar. Maybe we better start figuring out how to handle it when it does happen. That would probably be the biggest I would want.
All right. So interstate commerce, you think, according to the law professor, you should be able to do this right now, he says, right?
That's right. And Frank is joining us now.
Terrific. And let's wait for him to connect to his audio and look up. There he is, working hard, preparing for his own conference. Hi, Frank.
Hey, how you doing, Jimmy?
Good. Hey, welcome back to the show. And again, thank you for all your support over the years. You know, we've all survived this pandemic, and we're coming out on the other side running in-person conferences now. So it's going to be fun to see everybody in 3D on Tuesday.
Who would have thought we'd be back, right?
Yeah. Right, exactly. And most of us are vaccinated. By the way, do you guys have your COVID policy in place as far as the conference goes? I have to ask that right off the top.
Yeah, I was very insistent, actually, that in order to attend live, you have to show proof of vaccination.
Ooh, that's right.
Yeah.
Right. I have it. I have a card. I have a picture of the card. I still have an X on my arm. I can really prove that I've been vaccinated for sure.
And, you know, we try to think we're pioneers and at the forefront of this industry. I think we're pioneers of the conference too, because after we did that, there was a couple conferences that called us and they started doing the same thing. So
Right.
I think we're gonna see more of that.
Right. And you're starting to see, and look, TD Garden, Celtics and Bruins games this year are going to be even more and more difficult to get in. You're going to have to plan well in advance to be prepared in order to go see a live sporting event indoors moving forward, just as we get through this. But Frank, talk a little bit about your conference. You've got like a dream team lineup, it looks like.
Yeah, no, we're really fortunate to have the ability to attract industry leaders, people who are really on the front lines and can impart not only wisdom but practical experience and insight into the industry. And a number of these speakers we're fortunate to call clients, so it's easy for us to reach out to them. But others, we simply call them, tell them about the conference. They've heard about it, and it's great that after 5 years we've gained that kind of reputation as a very high quality, practical, rational platform for speakers to engage with the audience. And we've got some great speakers this year, very timely. We cover everything from the regulatory, as you know. It's become a mainstay to interview Commissioner Hoffman, who will be joining us again. This year, we also have another spotlight interview with two major players in the capital markets. We've got Riv Capital, which is very timely because they just took in $150 million from Scott's Miracle-Gro to go on an acquisition tear. Which is very interesting because now you have a major New York Stock Exchange company coming into the market kind of in a backdoor way. And Sundial Growers, which is about an $800 million capital fund out of Canada, which is being very aggressive in entering the U.S. markets through a debt play. So you've got equity and debt. We have, we like to showcase new technology. We like to highlight, obviously, what's going on in the regulatory markets. So we really try to, in a short time frame, have 4 or 5 panels that really will hit hot topics and provide practical insight into what is really confronting this industry. And people who are entering this industry hear from top CEOs, from around the country, we've got local operators from Massachusetts, we've got regional players, we've got national players. So we're very excited about the lineup this year. And the turnout has been incredible. I mean, we're already, as you know, Jimmy, we usually have around 200 people show up. We're already at 300 people this year.
Wow.
So we're very excited in a pandemic.
Right.
So that's, and we are streaming it as well. So people have access if they can't travel here or if they're concerned about being in that environment with a lot of people. So.
Very cool. Well, absolutely. And that still is a concern. I think we all recognize that. And it's another reason why get yourself vaccinated, show your card, try to get back to whatever normalization you can. Before you came on, David and I were talking about the Vanderbilt law professor, Robert Mikos, and his paper about interstate commerce. David, I'm going to let you ask the question of Frank now that I've set that up. Go ahead.
Okay. Frank, have you seen his paper, Frank?
No, I haven't, but is this on the dormancy clause, I assume?
Yes.
He's pretty articulate that interstate commerce can't be prohibited by the states, and that his paper seems to indicate that if somebody took a run at it, he seems confident they could tip over any of the regulations that prohibit interstate commerce of cannabis between states that have legalized it.
Well, I haven't read his paper, but the argument and the concern really has to do with when we go federally legal. So I don't agree, and who might argue with a professor, that the dormancy clause would enable you to do that today. People feel that it will enable you to do that once it's federally legal. There are people in this industry who bank very heavily on California and no other state, and one of the reasons they're doing that is because I've actually engaged in this discussion with some major operators about the dormancy clause. They feel that this was brought up in the alcoholic beverage industry, and then the states obviously passed their own regulation, but that's where this all emanated from. And there are, groups that feel that if this does go federal, the dormancy clause will come into effect, and you literally will have the walls broken down that you can have interstate commerce. And who you're going to buy your pot from? Are you going to buy your weed from Fall River Grow, or are you going to buy it from Humboldt Farms in California? So it's a very serious concern that some people have, and whether or not the states will be able to keep those walls up. I think they will, like the alcohol and beverage industry, regulated in that manner, because otherwise, look, California could supply the entire country, and you would decimate cultivation, particularly on the East Coast, if that were to happen. So it is something that it's not, science fiction. It's a real topic of discussion that could very well come into play in who knows when, but maybe 3, 4, 5 years if it goes federal, right?
And I was just about to ask you what you think the time frame is on that, because everybody has different projections on it. I actually think you're being optimistic with your 3 to 4 years, Frank. I'd like to see it tomorrow. Don't get me wrong. That being said, the current political climate in Washington, D.C. right now is not conducive to getting much done at all. And that concerns anybody, I would think, in the cannabis industry. If they can't even pass, basic principles and get everybody to get shots in their arms and stuff. It's really the most dysfunctional I've seen DC in my lifetime. Can I say that? Even back in the 70s?
Yeah, no, look, we're all seeing if this, I call it the backdoor Trojan horse, attaching the safe banking bill to
right.
the tax bill. Is that going to work? They've tried that before. I don't know if it will. So it's taken years to get that passed. That's the next step. I don't disagree with you. I don't think it's 3 years for federal legalization. I think it is more like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And then again, who knows? But let's see if the Safe Banking Act passes in the next 6 to 9 months.
Right. I mean, could it be a domino effect? Could you actually get one thing like that passed as an amendment even, and then perhaps start focusing on reform? We just had, we've had Michael Correa on from the NCIA, Morgan Fox on a regular basis as well. And, they maintain they're confident that they could get something done, but I'm trying to figure out how they're going to do it. And I just don't know how. I keep saying, aren't the House Republicans friendly with the Senate Republicans? And can't they just figure out a way to find common ground? It's not as simple as that. I know.
Yeah, no, I don't play in DC, so leave that up to the politicians. But we all want to see something happen, and it's a question. I don't think it is a domino effect. I think if that passes, people are going to say, "Hey, I just gave you the Safe Banking Act. Leave me alone. We got to deal with other things right now." So
it could end up backfiring or hurting the legalization movement. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that. I just think it's one step. This is an industry that crawls before it runs on Capitol Hill.
Right.
So.
That's right. All right. I appreciate that. Are there any announcements that might be coming from new companies? Is this a loaded question, Frank? Because you know exactly what I'm talking about. Any new of new companies that might be, I don't know, we both may know about them without me naming names.
No, you can name names. You know me. I'm a fully transparent guy. You know that.
Okay.
One of our panels is technology, e-commerce delivery.
Yep.
And fintech, as Jimmy is alluding to.
Right. Without saying.
Now, look, a number of the panelists are clients, but I'm also involved in the launch of one company called KindTap.
Yep.
I've always been at the forefront with my partner, Scott Moskal, who founded this group with me, and dealing with banking issues. And we've helped bring lenders into this industry, but we also looked for, the gaps in dealing with the consumer and finance products, et cetera. So I got involved with a company called KindTap, helped launch it. And we are truly providing the first digital credit card platform for consumers. to be used in dispensaries. And we'll be pretty much announcing and launching it and featuring it at the conference. There are a lot of companies that say you can use credit cards. You cannot. MasterCard, Visa, or Amex do not allow it. And if you are using it, they will shut you down. I mean, E's got caught in a big lawsuit in the delivery. And there are companies that say, okay, you can use your credit card, you'll forward purchase through a cash purchase our credit or our Bitcoins or whatever, and then we'll use that to buy cannabis. KindTap doesn't do that. KindTap is a fully compliant platform. You walk in, it's on your, if the dispensary accepts it, it's on your phone. We basically created our own credit card. It's a closed loop system. For those of listening who are old enough to remember the Diners Club.
Yeah, I had a Diners Club card.
Okay, well, KindTap is like a Diners Club.
Okay.
And it will have rewards and loyalty programs. So it truly is unique and fully compliant, and it runs on a U.S. regulated bank. So it's been fully vetted, and it's been over 18 months in the making. So KindTap's very excited to unveil this at the conference.
So that will allow you to have a revolving credit card for cannabis, so I could actually fund the usage for medicine and that sort of thing?
Yes.
Like I would.
You'll have credit on KindTap. You walk in and you can use that, and you have credit. And if you don't want credit, it can tie into your bank account for debit. But the big difference is it's not MasterCard. It's its own card. So unlike these other digital platforms that are either skating on ice or doing things behind the system, this is fully transparent, and we don't deal with Amex or MasterCard's rails. We're on our own rail system. So,
Frank, which panel will the folks from KindTap be on?
That'll be on the first panel, the Disruptors panel. We're very excited to also have the CEO of Lantern,
Meredith.
Meredith is on the panel. We have a few other e-commerce platforms. We also are very excited. We have one of the heads of compliance, Nina from Hound Labs, and they are developing the first THC breathalyzer. So significant amount of capital has gone into this company. They just closed a $20 million raise by several of the leading, not only cannabis venture capitalists, but non-cannabis venture capital funds, including Benchmark, which is one of the top in the world. They just did a $20 million round with Tuatara and Entourage Capital, also clients of ours, we're excited to say. And we were involved in that round, and that's how we met Hound Labs, and that's how we invited them to the conference.
Very cool. That the breathalyzer, for a second, okay? If it's designed to predict or create or measure how much THC you have in your system, now the legal question remains, are you impaired if you have X number of milligrams in your system, and can you drive while you have that much in there? How do you, where's that going to be in the law world?
You know what? I'm going to have you tune in on the conference. And we're going to talk about
Well, as I've always said, Frank, the best investment in cannabis is really with a law firm, because not only are you guys making the laws, you're going to fight the laws, you're going to write the laws, you're going to dispute the laws. That's your business. So,
interpret the laws. So
what's that?
we help you interpret the law.
Right. Well, you gotta, and it, because we're all part of history, right? Everything's being written as we go along. And I think that Disruptors panel, which you say is the first one of the day, is that at 9 a.m.?
Yes. Yeah. I think
okay. So that means my videographer, Dan, you and I both have to be there by 9 a.m. because I think that's the best. That's going to be the really cool panel that's the newsworthy panel, if you will. For no disrespect to your questioning of Stephen Hoffman. Okay.
He follows that panel. So he's
okay. What can you tell us? What's the latest on social clubs in Massachusetts? And granted, they got a break with the pandemic because they just said, well, nobody wants to socialize anyway. So, we'll put this on the back burner. Is there a plan? Is there a time frame? Do you know of anything going on with that?
I really haven't heard anything new. And that's a question that we can ask Commissioner Hoffman at the conference. You know, you've heard of some state, you know, Vegas is now having social consumption. It'll be interesting to see how that goes, because I assume they're going to do what most states have said: you can't mix alcohol in those social consumption lounges. So, yeah, you know, I think that there hasn't been a rush to get into that, because that's a big part of it. You know, alcohol pays the bills, and are people going to really go to a social consumption club to have some edibles and can't drink or do other things? Don't know yet. I mean, there's been no, nobody's come up with the right regs. Certainly Boston hasn't done anything. So I think, other than Worcester, with one lounge, I mean, I'm not aware of anything really happening.
Yeah, it's really a shame, because the plant itself is about socialization. It's always has been. And now, of course, because of the pandemic, we're not socializing as much. I didn't even see a lot of that on the Freedom Rally, which was really kind of enlightening this past Saturday in Massachusetts, with the so much open consumption going on. And by the way, if anybody is even thinking about drinking while on an edible, do me a favor and don't. Okay. It isn't worth it. You're going to have a bad experience. Just either or. Do an either or thing. Is that fair, Frank? That
is fair, but also just to address your question a little more in detail. I mean, what I did see, there were, we had some clients that were considering launching social consumption elsewhere in the country.
Yep.
And the pandemic absolutely killed those plans.
Right.
I mean, think about it. You're going to launch a restaurant in the middle of the pandemic? No.
Well, I know one actually. They got launched and they're doing very well on Moody Street, Venota. I told them I'd give them a plug.
You weren't going to do it a year ago. You weren't going to
launch. He did it in August of 2020.
Yeah.
Right. So he didn't do it in March of 2020. He did it in August of 2020. And by the way, it's a great restaurant, Moody Street. I'll give him a plug. Italian food. David, I'm sure you've been there. David? No, I just want to wake him up, Frank. That's what I was.
David always has his mute button on. He forgets he has his mute button on.
Well, it's because he's got his dogs running around. He lives in a kennel, for crying out loud, right?
Right. The dogs run the house.
The dogs run
Just simply the caretakers. That happened. Frank and I were on a call the other day, and that he had to keep reminding me I was on mute.
Frank, let's get back. There's a little serious conversation about access to capital. Everybody talks about it when it comes to cannabis, especially when it comes to social equity applicants. Even though not all social equity applicants need access to capital, I want to clarify that. However, it definitely can help the smaller operator. Does the advent of KindTap open up an opportunity for some mom and pop people out there that perhaps don't have access to big capital, but might want a revolving line of credit?
Not really KindTap, because KindTap is consumer.
Just consumer. Gotcha. Okay.
There are other. Look, we have a whole panel on capital.
Okay.
And that certainly is a very big hot button, not only for the capital panel, but you'll hear from the commissioner on this as well, because this is one of his biggest causes, is creating more capital for social equity and economic empowerment. And I know he's going to talk about a few initiatives he's working on and what his goals are there. So it's definitely a topic that you'll hear about at the conference. And there are other groups on the capital panel that could be sources to help those kind of companies.
So he's talked about a state bank before. Is that still being floated around?
No, I don't.
I didn't think so. I just wanted to throw it out there. I remember him talking about it.
I think it's too difficult for any bank, any state, to create a state cannabis bank.
Yeah.
Plus, you have more and more banks coming into the space. So, in Massachusetts, there are, other banks that are about to come in that I'm aware of that we help advise. And so I think you're going to continue to see more proliferation and access to capital and banking services, not at the federal level. That's not going to happen until it's federally legal. But you definitely are seeing more players in Massachusetts and throughout the country at the credit unions and the state chartered banks.
That's great. That is great. What about, so we're pretty much, what else do you have for the afternoon? What are your panels like in the afternoon?
So, we do have a regulatory panel that will talk about what's going on nationally, what kind of new issues. We have Cohn Resnick, one of the leading accounting firms in the country in the cannabis space. We'll be talking about 280E and tax issues, things of that nature. And, as I mentioned, we've got co-CEOs from Sundial and from Riv. I'm going to be interviewing them at lunchtime. Two of the most active capital providers in the country. And then we have we'll end with our CEO panel, where we've got local roots, we've got Garden Remedies, Merrimed, and we also have Agrify, CEO from Agrify, which is a public company that's making real inroads with new technology, new cultivation, and approaching this industry in a very different way than traditional cultivators are. So, we've got some really, every panel is fantastic, really top people who have come in from around the country. This is not a pay to play conference. Our speakers, they do it because they want to, not because we charge them. So I think that gives a lot of credibility to this conference, because a lot of conferences aren't like that. So we're very, very excited, to have these, executives, men and women from around the country join us.
Is Burns and Levinson heading out to MJ BizCon again this year in person, or are we virtual?
No, we are going. Scott, myself, my team will be there. I don't know if we'll do a cocktail party with 500 people like we did 2 years ago.
I remember that.
That was
we try to be cautious, but we'll be meeting with people. I think a lot of meetings, cocktail events, will be outdoors,
right?
Which is prudent. But it'll be interesting to see how big a crowd they get. I think people are going.
Right.
Sense I get.
I booked.
And, we'll be there in full force, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, as of mine, we booked our flights yesterday and rooms and all that. So no turning back now, Frank. We'll be on the strip, as they say, and it'll be an adventure. And I'll have plenty of my masks with me, so whenever I go inside. But I do think that going inside and then meeting outside is going to be a pattern. What do you think?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Some of the, starting to get some of the invites to events, and most of them seem to be outside.
Yeah.
And I think the ones that are inside, people are going to be a little concerned about. They might not get the attendance they want.
There you go. Well, Frank Segall, you've always been a friend of Pro Cannabis Media and our efforts here, and I really appreciate your support over the years. I look forward to seeing your conference on Tuesday, seeing you out at MJ BizCon, as well as we slowly get back to normalcy. And I would also think there's a lot of pride in the fact that Massachusetts, here we are a few years into the adult use market, about 8 years in since the medical program began. Massachusetts is starting to take an interesting leadership role in the disrupting different technologies that are out there, the growing. You must be pretty proud of the fact of what this state has been able to accomplish over the last few years, the first few years of its existence in the cannabis industry in Massachusetts.
Yeah, I know it certainly wasn't easy going for clients and operators to get into this space, in Massachusetts in the beginning. There were growing pains. But I do honestly and sincerely believe that the CCC has really created a commission that is user-friendly in many respects, that has gotten a lot better than it ever has. I think a lot of that has to do with, weathering a pandemic, getting, funding. And, we work very closely with them on behalf of our clients, and we find that it's a terrific working relationship. So I think Massachusetts is always trying to be a model in different areas, and I think that they are becoming a model for other states in cannabis. I really do.
And tickets are still available. How do people get them if they want to attend at this point on the Burns and Levinson website, right?
Well, they just go to our B&L website and certainly can access tickets. Again, you got to be vaccinated to get in. And there's that protocol. And we just wanted to create a safe environment for our guests as we could. So.
Well, I certainly hope that the experience of getting into your event is going to be easier than it's been for some in sporting events over the last few weeks, because I've heard some horror stories. But anyway,
I can't imagine when I'm a big Celtics guy. I can't imagine what that's going to be like. So
you're going to have to get in line at 4:00 to get to a 7:00 game, right? I think that's how, until they get to the point where they're going to, I don't know, flat, how we used to do the temperature check thing was really quick, but that's not just the only way you could need to be screened these days. So
it will create a whole new industry. Somebody will come up with some idea.
And we know just the law firm to represent them. All right, Frank Segall from Burns and Levinson. Great to see you, sir. See you again on Tuesday. Thank you so much. We're going to continue with our tourism and cannabis discussion. Don't go away. Green Rush Live continues after this. Weed Talk and In the Weeds are two productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
Difference is building a solution for that individual, not just a custom, here's a box, here's a video, here's how you make your VMS. We custom design and custom build every situation for exactly what the customer needs. And we keep the costs low. We have multiple tiers, as far as what you're looking at on the cost side of things. If you want a one-time, where you just pay one initial cost, we have that. If you want to maintain your system and have the highest protection and highest capabilities and highest upgrades at all times, we have different plans for you. But we scale it so it's scalable and affordable 100%.